The UK has its own issues. I mean, we heard from Prime Minister Theresa May wanting to end austerity. Is Britain ready for the end of austerity after 10 years of it?
Well, we spent 10 years dealing with a very difficult inherited deficit. This year, for the first time in 17 years, we will see our public debt start to fall as a share of our GDP. That does give us a little breathing space to be able to support our public services while being very clear that we will continue to reduce debt as a share of GDP.
But is there a risk of a miscalculation? Despite growth over the last 8 years, you still have a deficit of 2% of GDP, and some say you should be in a surplus.
Actually, we have a deficit a bit below 2% of GDP, and we're expecting it to fall further. But of course, we should aim over time to bring that deficit down to balance. But we have other priorities as well. We also need to support our public services, we need to keep taxes low, and we need to invest in Britain's future, raising our productivity performance for a truly prosperous future.
Talking about the future, how do you intend to increase its competitiveness? I mean, IMF Chief Christine Lagarde has said that whether or not there is a deal, there'll be repercussions, there'll be costs to the UK, and if there is no deal, there will be a contraction.
So certainly getting a good deal is a vital part of our economic plan for the future. But Britain's future has to be as a high-wage, high-skill economy. It cannot be any other way. And that means raising our productivity performance. Our big challenge is productivity. Now, that's a challenge, but the good news, of course, is that we are quite a way behind our principal competitors, and that's a reserve that we can draw on to fuel economic growth as we find the key to unlock that productivity challenge.
Could you possibly go the US way where you reduce taxes or increase infrastructure spending to boost growth?
Well, look, the issue for the UK economy at the moment is it is operating at effectively full capacity. Our problem isn't on the demand side, our problem is on the supply side. We have to increase the productivity of our economy, and as we do that, demand should take care of itself as wages rise in response to higher productivity performance. But of course, we're in a period of uncertainty because of the Brexit negotiations, and I have said, and I will continue to maintain, that we will keep an appropriate fiscal reserve so that if we need to, we can intervene to support demand in the UK economy.
Chancellor, are you comfortable with where the pound is right now? It's been pretty weak, and some say that, if there is a deal, you could see an upside of 17%.
Well, I have huge trust in the markets to effectively price all assets, including currencies, and we have an independent central bank that sets monetary policy, and as a matter of principle, I don't comment on the level of the pound.
Let's talk about what's been called the Amazon tax. How much would that add to your coffers?
Well, look, we believe that there is an issue about fairness here. As the digital economy is evolving, there are a group of businesses out there which are generating significant value added from their interaction with consumers, including consumers in the UK, but do not have a physical presence in the UK that delivers tax to our exchequer. And there has to be a fair distribution of the taxation rights on that value added. And what we've said is we would prefer to do that through international agreement. We'll be discussing that issue here tomorrow in the IMF forum. But if we can't achieve that, then I am prepared to look at a UK-only solution. Some of our EU colleagues are also looking at ways in which they could introduce taxes on the digital economy.
Can you shed some light in terms of the revenue streams and the companies that will be taxed?
Well, we are focusing our attention on business models that involve exploiting either the personal data of UK consumers or exploiting content which is uploaded by UK consumers. We're not looking at the moment at an online sales tax on the sale of goods over the internet. We're looking at those digital platform companies that add value, create value by interacting with consumers. We believe that that value-adding process takes place in the location where the consumer is, and therefore that is where it should be taxed.
Chancellor, just touching on Brexit, if the EU does accept the UK's backstop, meaning the UK remains within the customs union indefinitely until a deal is found, does that mean that businesses will have to go through two sets of changes?
No. First of all, we're not going to remain in anything indefinitely. We're very clear this has to be a temporary period. But it is true that there needs to be a period probably following the transition period that we've negotiated before we enter into our long-term partnership, just because of the time it will take to implement the systems required. It's very important to us that business doesn't have to make two sets of changes, that there will be effectively continuity from the current setup through the transition period into any temporary period, and then a single set of changes when we move into our long-term new economic partnership with the European Union.